David Turvey, thank you so much for joining me today. I'm excited to hear some of your insights and views onto our Nigeria mining sector. So with that said, David, Kogi Iron has a really long-standing presence in Nigeria. So in your view, how has the industry changed or grown over the past few years?
Yeah, thanks, Laura. Yeah, we have been in Nigeria for at least 8 years, both exploring, evaluating, and doing development studies. And the changes have all been positive. Really, they were set up 15 years ago by presidential directives and things like that on improving foreign investment policies in Nigeria. We've seen that those are operating. The security of tenure is key, and we have held tenure for that time, and we have evolved tenure, and it's been cost and time effective. That's a critical thing. The government has also spent a lot of time and effort in improving their own their bureaucratic systems, and that includes land titles that are reflected on just there, but also their databases where they're trying to understand what minerals should be invested in and how they should be invested in, and policies related to domestic investment in mining and foreign investment in mining and how they can overlap. So I see that as a work in progress, but I see significant advance over the last decade, and I think the next decade is key, and I am quite positive that Nigeria will move those forward.
Brilliant, David. That's a really positive outlook from yourself on Nigeria. With that said, then I'm interested to know, so would you consider Nigeria as a sound investment region for the mining industry? I'm guessing you're probably going to say yes.
Yeah, it is yes. And it really relates to the scale of the economy, the lack of mining that is there. It's only 0.3% of GDP. And these directives that I mentioned before are targeting to get 10% of GDP in mining in a decade or so. That's quite doable, and there are international precedents for doing that. So they do have a lot of good people working on that. So yes, I would say now is exactly the right time to come in. You've seen the recent success in the development of the gold sector with Thor and Sagiola, and that's often the case. You have oil and gas first as foreign investment and domestic investment, and then you will get things like gold, which it's not that they're easy to invest in, but they're easy for the international industry to understand and compare how they spend capital and how capital can be returned. So the actual financial evaluation of an investment is very, very easy in gold. Things like the cement industry, that's been a great success story for Nigeria with Dangote Group and with foreign investment in there. Lafarge has invested in there. So here you have domestic investment in the cement industry, a fundamental industrial mining industry and processing industry, and you have some of the biggest in the world coming in on the coattails because they see that demand is there. The population is there and the economy is of a scale. Iron ore and steel, which is where we're at, is one of the next fundamental cabs off the rank, to coin a phrase. So yeah, come in. Some of the others, the government is putting together a priority list of minerals that they want investment in, and they want to have supportive policy for those. That's the best way for them to go. You start off with an inventory that is a mile long, and you end up focusing on 4 or 5 minerals that are fundamental to your economy, and that you have let's call it a natural competitive advantage internationally, where you can attract investment in. And Nigeria has it in spades.
So David, I know you are particularly passionate about energy and the role that energy needs to play for the mining industry in Nigeria. What are your comments around the importance of energy supply in the country?
Yeah, thanks, Laura. It's important all over the world. And what I do like about Nigeria, and is in a state of flux all over the world with renewables and things like this. So every country, every economy in the world has its own energy issues, let's say, because most of them are issues. It's a very dynamic sector at the moment. What I like about Nigeria is that it is an energy positive country. exports at the moment a large amount of oil, gas and natural gas, and that supports its economy. So therefore it has a lot of it, and its actual inventory is enormous. It's world class in the amount of oil and gas that it does have. It's in fact a very gas-rich country. What it has lacked is a internal domestic demand for power from gas. It does have gas pipelines, it does have infrastructure. It needs to support projects like the energy intensive projects like iron ore and steel, like aluminium, things like that, that demand power and can utilise the pre-existing gas. The gas is already there. It's just that it's not used because you don't have the demand load. And by the way, residential demand load is not the same because it's all about storage and distribution in wires. It's little about individual hubs that demand large amounts of power, and that's why power price can go down, and that's why how you can expand the infrastructure. That's what these critical industrial infrastructure projects are all about. It's to align supply with demand. I'm on the demand side of gas and power. So I hope that answers your question, that I see it as a competitive advantage of the country that they have gas and I have iron ore and they need steel. So 1 + 1 + 1 equals about 5 or 6.
It's a good marriage just waiting to happen.
Yeah. Well, of course it'll take time, and it takes time with policy. And when you are setting precedents, because this is a pioneer project, there isn't any steel production in Nigeria, there will need to be policies around supporting the power supply to a steel plant, because unless you can have available power, consistent power, and that need not just be one source, it can be from multiple sources, but availability, consistency, it's quite risky to invest in steel because you don't want the power to turn off or your steel plant freezes and
absolutely,
it's not recoverable. Yeah, so some of the security of infrastructure are key things, and that's not just the physical side. We're not talking about insurgency or terrorists or things like this. It's much more about the supply being available. Having said that, we will always look at renewables. We're looking at pumped hydro, we're looking at solar for peripheral types, and these are more related to the community and to ancillary service industries around the steel plant, because steel is base load demand 24/7. And unless it has that, and renewables can and never will supply that, so there needs to be this really good balance between optimising the amount and type of renewables that we'll use with, in this case, the logic is gas-fired power. Yes, I'm passionate about it, Laura.
Great. Thanks, David. Last but not least, let's touch ever so briefly on the topic of COVID-19. I mean, it has impacted Nigeria. So let's find out how it's impacted Kogi Iron. And maybe as an addition to that, David, tell us how your project is tracking and what we can expect from it in the next few months.
Yeah, good. Look, COVID-19 is on the thoughts and lips of everyone around the world, and has it impacted everyone around the world. So firstly, we did shore up our policies and guidelines in country, and that included increased communication, but it involved the use of PPE, it involved the restriction of our people, let alone other people, onto what is relatively, in a Nigerian sense, a remote plateau, and the community that we're working with up there. We've been blessed and lucky in that we haven't had any impact on our immediate team, and we've had no impact on the community, to the point where we did do some community activities using local contractors. Because of that, we didn't bring in someone from another state, even though they may have done a different job and perhaps even a better job. It was much better to use the local community because it was safer, for one. So that's how we did it. Where it impacted corporately was exactly this. It's on communication. It's on the lack of ability to be face-to-face with a minister in Nigeria. Zoom calls are really good, and that's evolving very fast. But I am very mindful of the need to have direct interaction.
Of course.
Most importantly is the financial and market uncertainty. You know, we're at a time where we're raising money to do a feasibility study, and rightly so, the whole world has been uncertain about its investment, and there's been an enormous amount of restructuring in investments. So it has been difficult for junior companies like us, and particularly in what could be perceived as the most uncertain or more risky types of investments in a place like Nigeria. So the fundraising has been difficult, but we do have a great project, and we did revise our sort of strategic plan around COVID and said, look, rather than go out and source the 8 million we require for a feasibility study over 14, 16 months, let's focus on the 3 key areas that we can do, let's say remotely, would be a decent way of thinking about it. So we're currently raising $1 to $2 million and focusing on 3 critical path efforts. One is refining. We already have the materials offshore, and it's to get a technical process guarantee. The second, and I've reflected on this, is a gas supply agreement. And with that, the ability to attract IPP, independent gas-fired power. So we are the demand, so we have the right and we need to negotiate the gas supply contract, and we would supply that to an independent investment in a gas-fired power plant. And the third, and that's government to company type thing. So I'm very active in talking with the various ministries and receiving their support on how we progress a unique gas supply contract, because it's a unique project. And then the most important, and will be the most fun, and these are in descending order of not priority, but of time. So the first one is 2 to 3 months, second one is 3 to 6 months, third one is around that 6 months. And that is the policy behind a market entry strategy for our product. We are looking at replacing imports. So unless the country has an import replacement policy, then I want one. And well, the project demands it, in fact. It's how you actually transparently set up your pricing. Transparent, it's an interesting word. And that's from our perspective, that's from the government perspective, and that's from the industry and the customers' perspective of what they will be paying for the price of our product. Because there is no one else. I don't want to be seen as a monopoly in the country, the only one supplying steel and actually, you know, screwing price down and not. I want to be seen as supporting industry. Therefore, I want to replace high-priced imports by fair-priced billet. There you go. Only 3 things to do, Laura, in 6 months.
David, brilliant. I think those are pretty critical milestones for the company and for the project, but yeah. I have no doubt you'll get there, and let's hope that the government comes to the party and works with you and to make it happen. Yeah,
likewise. But all indications are good, and that reflects back on our first question that it's in their interests, it's in our interests to stimulate investment in the mining sector and related industrialisation in the country.
Brilliant.
Comes down to policy.
Brilliant.
Thanks for your time.
Thanks so much, David, for your time, and fingers crossed that we'll see some great movements on your projects in those next 6 months.
Yeah, great. And bye for now.
Brilliant. Cheers, David.